Hi, and welcome to Spoonful of Strength. I'm Rachel, and I live with multiple sclerosis, type 1 diabetes, and a few other diagnoses that keep life interesting.
And I'm Tina. I am a fibromyalgia warrior with chronic back issues and a proud stage 4 cancer survivor. We're sisters, and together we're here to support, inspire, and connect. So if you're new here, the spoon theory explains how we navigate life with limited energy or spoons.
And we're thrilled to share that we've been ranked number 30 on FeedSpot's Top 100 Chronic Illness podcast list. So grab a spoon and let's dig into stories, tips, and a whole lot of strength. This episode of Spoonful of Strength is sponsored by Salty Provisions. Salty Provisions offers gourmet, award-winning, handcrafted sea salts and seasoning blends made with sea salt from the pristine waters off the coast of Norway. Their products are free from artificial additives, fillers, and anti-caking agents, ensuring pure, bold flavor in every sprinkle. Their seasonings are gluten-free, vegan, and crafted to bring out the best in every meal. Welcome to another great episode of Spoonful of Strength. We are so happy to be with you today as we have a great episode coming up today where we're going to talk about some alternative therapy, whether that be through massage or chiropractic or meditation, different things like that. We're going to kind of go through some list of some alternative ways of healing with chronic illness. And in the second part of this episode, we will talk to Johanna. And Johanna has suffered with migraines since the age of 8, and she found some relief for her migraines through yoga. And she is a yoga teacher that has trained in Bali, Indonesia. And she's going to talk with us later about yoga, and she's going to talk about her migraines. And so it's a packed show. We are here after a week off. And we appreciate all the kind messages on Instagram that we received as about 10 days ago, our brother, Tina's brother, my brother-in-law, and my husband's brother, passed away. And so we took a week off and to be with family and to have a chance to mourn. And so we're back. So, Tina, how are you doing? Loaded question.
Yeah, I know. There's so much to unpack from that question, but I'll just say, well, I'm back home. I came home yesterday, and I'm just trying to recover from being out of town, the long drive, the obvious stress, and of everything. So. But
Yeah.
best thing to do is to get back into the normal routine. So that's what I'm trying to do here. How about you? How are you feeling? I know it took a lot out of you, coming down, traveling for the service and
Yeah.
a
It
long day for you.
um yeah, it was definitely a stressful week and trying to decide. There was never a question that I wasn't going to go. It was about a 2-hour drive for us. But just a question of, what mobility aid do I need? How am I going to get through um and make sure that I physically can be there and support my husband. And so I went with my walker, which has a seat on it. So that was very helpful that I could take rest breaks as needed and still, be able to be there. I decided to use my walker, and that was good. And I was able to get through the day. We were pretty tired when we got home, and I think Saturday was, I don't think either of us got out of our pajamas. So, but I posted a question on Instagram last week that talked about, how to handle big social events, and it was definitely something that we needed to plan and all of that. But overall, we're doing all right here. I have a big appointment coming this week. Still haven't received the final biopsy results from the Cleveland Clinic, but I have a appointment at the Neuroscience Center at Indiana University on Friday. So hopefully we'll be able to get some more information and just keep moving forward. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yep. So let's talk about alternative therapy. Now, I feel like you're going to be a little bit more knowledgeable in things like this. I tend to go for the kind of how would you the primary route, and a lot of insurance companies don't cover a lot of alternative therapies, and so that's always been something that I've kind of shied away from. But we're going to talk a lot about different ways of dealing with chronic illness versus kind of the typical ways. So what would you
Right.
say if you had to narrow it down to the type of therapy that you're most familiar with? What would that be?
That's a good question because I do like you mentioned, I tend to I do a lot of alternative therapies in addition, not as a substitute, but as a kind
Right.
of a companion to traditional. Um, but I would have to say the one of the main ones that helped me with the sciatic pain that I dealt with for so many months would be acupuncture.
Mm.
Was a big one for me that was helpful when I was going through my cancer journey, seeking out a naturopath and getting on the right vitamins and supplements and things like that that best support your body and also support the other medications that you may be on.
So describe acupuncture as far as what it is, what it does, and what you benefited from it.
Yeah. So in just in general Chinese medicine or Eastern medicine, as they believe there's in a we have um energetic meridians through our bodies as well. And so from what I understand as far as acupuncture, there are certain just like we have certain pathways, like if you look at your body and you look at like the nervous system, you can see like that mapping of like your nerve pathways and how that all interconnects. And the energetic pathways are also very similar. And if you look at, maybe we can add that when we post this too, is a an overlay that kind of shows your nerve pathways in addition to like the energetic pathways throughout your body. So they the with acupuncture, they put in small, tiny little needles in certain areas of the body based on what they're trying to help with. And that kind of helps, like usually like with chronic pain and chronic illness and other things, the philosophy with acupuncture or other Eastern Chinese medicine, Chinese herbs, those type of things, is the thought of there's a disruption in that, in your flow, in your energetic flow,
Mm-hmm.
that's causing that as well. And so by using the acupuncture, the needles, that kind of helps correct that flow
Mm-hmm.
throughout your body. So it helps promote, your blood flow,
Mm-hmm.
which helps with reducing inflammation. It helps reduce the pain. It just it brings it back to the more natural flow that can help your body support itself. That can bring in the energy and the blood flow and the that it's being deprived of to help promote healing from within.
So what are the benefits that you found with it personally?
I so for me it was the combination of the acupuncture and the um physical therapy when I was dealing with the um sciatic pain. that's
Mm-hmm.
I had those two back injections, the steroid injections, and it was like I hadn't even had anything done. Any of the like gabapentin, the nerve pain medications, the muscle relaxers, none of that was helping. And it was not until I saw that acupuncturist that actually finally relieved that sciatic pain.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good.
Similar to that is also trigger point therapy, which is very similar. And I went through that a lot when I was dealing with a lot of fibromyalgia pain. It doesn't use needles, it's more of with trigger points, our muscles, we have lactic acid through our body. And these little trigger points are basically where you get this little buildup of lactic acid. It's almost like a pea, like a size of a pea. It's very small, but it where it's sitting, it doesn't allow your muscles to completely relax. It keeps it in like this constant slight state of contraction. So then that's where you're getting pain as well. So learning those trigger points and knowing how to release that is also super beneficial and helps a lot with that chronic pain release as well.
And that's acupressure, right?
Yeah, acupressure, trigger point is a little more targeted, but it's still very like the concept is very similar.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been wanting to try massage therapy because I'm kind of waiting on this appointment this week to see if that would be something that they would recommend. But I have so many painful spots in my body, whether it be I've got spots kind of in the lower back on the sides, and I've got spots in my hips that are so painful to touch. And I have a lot of pain in my hips and in my knees, and but it also feels very muscular. And so, whether that be acupressure or massage therapy, something because my body tends to tense up. A lot of my muscles are contracted a lot and very tight, so tight that even like the physical therapy that I've done on my shoulder or other areas took 2, 3 times longer because my body would not relax. And so it's hard when some of the Eastern medicine things aren't typically covered by insurance, but I think looking into my insurance, I might be able to get some of that covered. And so massage therapy, I think, would be something that could be beneficial, but I don't know the difference between like the acupressure or the acupuncture and massage and which one would be beneficial for my specific needs.
Right. And it also depends on, what is going on. Another one that popped up that I just remembered when it was funny, my physical therapist and my acupuncturist both used it, is cupping.
Mm,
And that's also a massage modality as well as a cup massage. And so that's another modality that depending on what the focus is, it
hmm.
depends on how it's done and why it's done. And for me, it was more of like my physical therapist explained it as, like with typical massage, you're massaging that muscles, but you're massaging basically a massage therapist can only go so deep. We
Mm,
have a lot of layers of fascia in our body, a lot of that muscular layers, and like massage really only can go down in those first few layers. And then what also can happen is that the massage actually can compress those layers more. So it may feel good immediately, but it may not always help depending on how deep where the pain or the injury or whatever it is that's causing it, depending on how deep that is in those layers, the massage may actually be compressing it more, and it may
mm,
not help, or you're not getting the blood flow that you need, where the cupping is just a really gentle, almost like a gentle suction that helps pull those layers apart a little
Mm-hmm.
more to allow the blood flow to get in there and help promote healing.
Yeah, because one of the things I'm worried about is that my those areas are so tender. I worry about the massage being so painful. And
Hmm.
and so maybe something more gentle might be the best bet. And I'm kind of waiting to hear, the muscle biopsy results because right now I'm just in this holding pattern of like I almost like I don't want to do anything right now until I know what I'm dealing with because I don't want to do something
Right.
that's going to hurt it. Um and but it's getting to the point I would say the last couple months to where my body hurts, like physically just hurts to touch like all the time. And I'm not one to I take a muscle relaxer, and I take, some meds for the MS and all of that, but I typically don't like taking medicine because my
Hmm.
body has reacted poorly with some of the medicines that I've taken, whether that be like full body breakout rash, that I had versus I had a medicine. And these were all MS medicines, but I had one that I got. My breathing is already so poor, and I had one that made it worse. And luckily, I was able to rebound from that. I also had one that gave me colitis. And so I have a lot of anxiety over taking new medicine. And so the older I get, the more I'm open to the things that are more natural that could help me versus taking a medicine. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah, yeah. And also, it may be a multifaceted approach for you where, okay,
Yeah.
I'm not quite ready for massage is too painful, so why don't I try this? And then once they get, if you try acupuncture and they're like, okay, and then you realize that, all right, the pain is not as bad anymore. Now maybe I'll be able to benefit from
Mm-hmm.
a massage.
Yeah. Kind of a
So,
stepping
just because
stone.
yeah, so just because it doesn't work in that moment or is too painful at the moment doesn't mean that it's a total write off. And sometimes it's beneficial to revisit it later if you've had success using something, a different modality.
Another alternative medicine that I'm very interested in, I don't know, again, with my MS, if it would even be helpful, but is like the cold therapy. I'm sure you've all
Hmm.
seen, you know, people on Instagram, social media, getting in the cold plunges and the cold therapy. And and I know with having a neurological disease, I'm not sure if that would be something that I would benefit from. Um, but have you ever tried cold therapy?
On a consistent basis, but a number of years ago, we actually went to this place in New York City. We went away for a weekend with some friends, and we went to this place called Spa Castle up outside of New York City, and they
Mm-hmm.
had all these different saunas. Uh, they had an infrared sauna, they had like a salt room, they had your typical steam sauna, but they also had like an ice or a cold sauna as well. We tried them all out, and I definitely see the benefit of that. And there's a method that it's called the Wim Hof, WIMHOFF, I believe is how it's spelled. Wim Hof, and that's the guy's name that started it. And it's the benefit of it's more than just plunging into a cold bath of water or taking a cold shower. It's also being very mindful in your breathing and consciously slowing your body down to where it actually can tolerate that cold better, because keeping that under your breathing and everything and your body calm avoids that jolt of
Mm-hmm.
that initial jolt of jumping into something icy cold, um, which, if you jolt when you're trying to help your body that's already hurting, you don't want to do that. So there's an actual um, fairly in-depth method to that. And I know Dave for a while, he would take cold showers,
Mm-hmm.
um, like 15-minute cold shower.
Wow.
And it really helped him feel better. Like he felt like his body didn't seem as sore, not as inflamed and everything, because cold actually will shrink. So
Yeah.
if you are one that tends to be, in general, for a lot of us, unless we're really diligent about eating clean, we put a lot of stuff in our body that causes a lot of inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so finding those other ways to help reduce that, in addition to obviously clean eating, um, is, that cold therapy can help reduce that inflammation as well.
Yeah. And you mentioned mindfulness and meditation, and I think that we've talked about that in the past. And in fact, if you go back to episode 19, we had a whole episode about mindfulness and meditation. So we're not going to talk a lot about that. But if you are interested in that subject, go back and listen to episode 19 as we talk more about that. But um, kind of the opposite of the cold therapy is like the sauna you talked about, where it's heat. And that's one thing that I think you and I were talking, and I don't know if it was on an episode or if we were talking just in general about like physical therapy with like in a pool where it's a little
Yeah.
easier to move around
Hmm.
and that's something that I would be really interested in, but my physical therapist said no, that wouldn't be a good idea because the pools are heated. And with MS, you have that heat. You can have uh, your symptoms can worsen because of heat, but also because of cold. So
Hmm.
in when it's cold out, my muscles tend to stiffen up. When it's hot out, my symptoms seem to the fatigue and the weakness, the ear ringing, some of my symptoms get a little bit worse. But so you want to make sure that whatever you're looking into, we surely aren't doctors and are not saying, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. We're just providing options. But ultimately, depending on your situation, a doctor's advice is always going to be the best bet.
Hmm.
But I know with the
Yeah.
heat
Yeah.
therapy, you have to be careful, especially like with my type 1 diabetes. I have a little bit of neuropathy. So, heat, I have to be very careful with. This was even before having MS, just because if you don't have a lot of feeling in your toes and your fingers and you get into something that's heated, you may not realize if you're doing,
Right.
more damage.
Damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of
We had,
things
yeah,
in chronic
to take
illness
into
that you have to,
consideration.
yeah, take into
Yeah.
consideration.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually have an infrared sauna here at home. We got it years ago because it helps my fibromyalgia flare
Can you
ups. The heat
explain what the
actually helps
infrared
me.
does?
So infrared, so I think a lot of people, when you think of a sauna, you think the traditional steam, you're sitting there, there's, lava rocks, or, rocks with water poured over, and it's very steamy. The infrared sauna is dry, it's a dry heat, and with using infrared rays that kind of helps like penetrate deeper into those sore muscles, and
Mm-hmm.
like promotes blood flow, um and so it helps with healing and muscle aches.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
even just cold. Like if we feel like we're coming down with something, we'll hop in the sauna because that also helps kind of um I feel like we get over, if we get the flu or a cold or whatever, it seems to help promote overall health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned, getting sick. And of course, when you have a chronic illness, it's even worse when you get a common cold or a stomach virus. If
Yep.
anybody in the family is sick or we feel something coming on, we have like Golden Seal, which is something you can buy over the counter. It's just a vitamin that will help. Also, like the emergency or Zicam, things like that can help at the
Yeah.
start of the cold. And I've seen that has helped me before, but also even other vitamins for MS. Most people with MS have a vitamin D deficiency. So, vitamin D is very important to take to help with that. I, in the past, have had vitamin B issues. So, in the past, I've taken vitamin B as well. But again, those are things that need to be done based on your situation and your deficits. I
Yep.
have some
Well,
deficits with calcium, and Ed has some potassium. His body, for some
mhm.
reason, is always low on potassium. Every time he has a surgery, they always say, "Well, we can't do the surgery, so they have to give him potassium right before and help with
Yeah.
that."
Hey there, salty fans. If you're hearing this, you may already be familiar with the benefits of salt in your routine. Nourishing your body with the right foods matters just as much as what you leave out of your diet.
That's exactly why they do what they do at Salty Provisions. They keep it clean, literally. No fillers, no anti caking agents, no artificial flavors or colors, just pure high quality ingredients that support your body naturally. And it all starts with their first and most important one, Norwegian sea salt.
Unlike other major brands, their sea salt is rigorously lab tested and proven to be one of the purest options available. You get the essential minerals your body needs without the impurities and toxins it doesn't.
And if you rely on salt for hydration, adrenal support, or overall wellness, shout out to our POTS warriors. The last thing that you need is hidden contaminants interfering with your health.
That's why they've made the best choice in their first ingredient, so you can focus on restoring balance naturally.
So go ahead, keep it clean with Salty Provisions. Explore their gourmet sea salts, bold seasoning blends, and balanced electrolyte drink mixes at doyoulovesalt.com.
And because your wellness journey deserves the best, here's a little gift. Use code SPOONFUL with 2 L's for 20% off your order. Real ingredients, real benefits, real healing. Keep it clean with Salty Provisions.
You saw a naturopath when you were going through your cancer.
I
Um,
did. Yep.
and so what were some of the things that that they did with you?
So with my naturopath, she was awesome. Thankfully, and of course, as soon as I tracked her down, she was one specifically oncologist naturopath, and I went to my oncologist and said I would like to go and start seeing her if that's okay. And she's like, "Oh, absolutely. We actually send a lot of patients there, so they already work together essentially to begin with." So that the naturopath, we did uh, various supplements that would best support my body based on the immunotherapy drugs that I was on and what I was going through at that moment, some of the struggles and side effects I was dealing with the colitis and that I eventually got, supporting the fact that I only have one kidney. So something that supports kidney health. We did a IG, and we mentioned this in our previous episode when we were talking about diet and nutrition, the IgG panel that showed like food sensitivity. So I knew what foods I should try to avoid to help decrease, my body's response to these foods and the inflammation response that it would go through. When I started radiation, we made a couple tweaks with, she added some other supplements that would help my body through the radiation treatments and those type of things. So again, it's really important to work hand in hand with um, your regular doctor that's treating you for your chronic illness and
Mm-hmm.
and a naturopath that's willing to. Because sometimes, depending on your doctor, and I know I'm sure some of our listeners have been in similar situations where, some doctors are very traditional and
Mm-hmm.
they will not, they don't want to even consider any holistic or alternative options out there. So it's important to make sure that all of your medical team, or you at least have one person that you see on a regular basis on your medical team that's on board with also working and being open to some more holistic, not. And I always say I think that the reason why I'm here is because of the combination of I am always been one that says there's alternative therapies out there, but it's not necessarily meant to be an either or
Right.
situation. They should all, you should be in a situation where you can work hand in hand together.
Mm-hmm. The best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And yeah. And you mentioned diet, and if anybody wants to go back, we also did an episode on diet, episode 45. So if you want more information about that, we talked a lot about diet. But I think,
Mhm.
to wrap all of this up, I think what you said was, the best is that it doesn't have to be either or. I think having stage 4 cancer and what, like a 17% survival. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think it was like 14 or 17,
14.
somewhere
Okay.
around there. Yeah.
Yeah. And being able to pretty much integrate both of those together um,
Hmm.
made a difference to
Yeah.
not only getting
Yeah.
through the chemo, but also, you're still here. How many years are we?
I am coming up on 7 years.
That's amazing.
It'll be 7 years next month.
I can't believe it. It doesn't
I
seem
know it
like,
doesn't seem like it's been that long, but that was
yeah.
I also another non-traditional, and again, it depends on what state you're in or what country you're in. But one of the things when with my first diagnosis, when I first got my diagnosis, I was sent to the hospital for something else. So I was in the hospital and I immediately applied for my medical cannabis card.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did and of course I talked it over with my oncologist to make sure that it was, that there was nothing that was going to interact inappropriate, any bad interactions. But it's called Rick Simpson oil, which is very well known for its cancer fighting properties, super concentrated, like super, super ridiculously thick
Mm,
oil, like cannabis oil, um, to where you're literally like you work up to being able to handle the size of a grain of rice. Like I had
mm.
to work up to that point. And so that's how potent it is, but it also was very um had a lot of benefits and cancer fighting properties on that, medical marijuana, THC, CBD, those type of things also have a lot of health benefit. There's, benefits again if you're living in an area where that is legally obtained.
In Indiana, you can't buy, what is it that you can't buy with the THC in there, I think is what it is.
Right.
So I did
Yeah.
take at some point some CBD that was legal
Mhm.
And to be honest, it was so long. It was probably maybe 5 years ago. I don't remember if it helped a lot. And where I'm at now with the amount of pain that I am in, it may be something to consider looking back into. And I think that's kind of where I'm at now, is just looking beyond what prescriptions can do. And so I'm at this
Right.
place right now of learning what other options there are, and um, seeing what options are available that might be able to help, because I'm in a
Yeah.
place now where I'm not I'm not happy with the way that I feel.
How you
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
amount of
yeah. And
pain that
that's a
I'm
big thing too, is making sure, sometimes like when you're on prescription medication, a lot of, we all listen to these commercials of, may cause blah, 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 blah. And there's so many,
yeah.
so many possible side effects that these prescription medications can help. And like with the colitis that I was dealing with, yes, it was related to the Keytruda. But originally it was just, I also suffered with rash, and the answer is always, here's another prescription to counteract the side effects
Hmm.
that this other prescription is giving you. Which personally I did not like going down
Yeah.
that route, because then that new prescription medication also comes with side effects, and so it's
Yeah.
like you're this constant chase of trying to manage side effects versus managing the issue
Hmm.
in general.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I really enjoyed working with my naturopath, because there were other natural ways to mitigate the side effects that I was going through from the
Hmm.
medication, that I felt the benefits of the medications that I were on far outweighed the side effects, but you still shouldn't have to suffer the side
Yeah.
effects.
Yeah.
Um,
And I know a lot of insurance companies, I think they're getting better with covering things. But if it could take a half-hour phone call to insurance to see what your options are and what your copays would be, or how much out of pocket it would be, those are little things that you can do to at least see what your options are. Because I didn't realize, I looked into my insurance um, that I can go to and get acupuncture, that was covered in my insurance. And so um, I am now digging into a little bit more of my insurance and what it can cover and what my cost would be. And then at that point, trying to figure out what the best option is and what you're financially, can afford, and kind of going from there. But um, we're going to next week, we're going to be talking with some physical therapists, and we're going to be talking about physical therapy. So you definitely want to check out that episode. That is all revolving around physical therapy and chronic illness. And we're going to have some physical therapists on to talk about that. So we'll kind of conclude this episode, but we're going to talk to Johanna, our spoonie, coming in to talk a little bit more about yoga. And then we're going to continue the conversation next week to talk about physical therapy and the benefits of physical therapy. So we just keep going on talking about all these important things that we need to talk about. So, can you believe I forgot to mention that we only have 3 episodes left after this, and we'll be completing our third season. So, we're going to finish it out really strong. We've got some great topics and we've got some great guests coming.
yeah,
So, it'll be good.
yeah. I know. I can't believe it's, three seasons wrapping up, and season 4 we're already looking at.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
We've already have a
No,
wait
no.
list going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No rest for the weary, I guess.
well, we got to have a little rest. We have to take
No rest.
some
A little
time.
rest. We do.
So,
Yeah.
so let's go ahead and bring Johanna in.
Thank you so much for joining us on Spoonful of Strength. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
So I am originally from New York. I moved to California about 9 years ago, and now I am based mainly out of Sacramento. I moved here to be close to my sister and her kids. They are living in Davis, and I was only seeing them like once a year. Now I get to see them once a week. So that
Mm.
was a great big reason for me to move here. And yeah, I've been doing yoga since well, I've been practicing yoga my whole life, but I started really around the time of the pandemic, getting really into it. When we came out of it, I went to Bali, Indonesia, for my yoga teacher training. I spent over 2 months there, getting my certification and just traveling around and learning the culture. And yes, yoga completely became my passion. And I realized that during that time that my migraines were not anywhere near what they were. So to give you the backstory, my when I was growing up in New York, I was about 8 years old and I went to work with my father. We had moved from Manhattan to the eastern end of Long Island, and he was still commuting to work. So he took the Long Island Railroad. And I was going with him one day, and we were running for the train, and I hit my head on a dumpster, like the corner of it. And immediately it swelled up into like the size of, it looked like half of a golf ball coming out of my head. And within about a, I would obviously the next day I was suffering from pretty bad, soreness, tenderness, headache, mild headache. They tested me for concussion. All that stuff was fine. But my hair actually started growing in a circle of gray. So the color left, the pigment left completely right here. And then yeah, about a week or two later, I started getting pretty consistent migraines all the time. 2, 3 times a week. Sometimes they'd last the whole week and never go away. It was terrible, where you have the light aura and you'd have to be in a dark room, sound, smell, everything was just nauseating. Sometimes I would just sit in a bathtub for hours, and that was the only thing that made me feel better.
So it sounds like they really felt like that accident was the start of the migraines, the cause for it. What tests did they do to check to make sure there wasn't something else going on?
We were pretty sure it was the head trauma, but just to be on the safe side, I started going for all sorts of testing. I had those allergy tests where they do the shots on your arms every week, one arm, then the next week the other arm, and for months that went on. And CAT scans, MRIs, all of the things. We couldn't find anything, nothing. Everything came back normal. So I pretty much dealt with that on and off my whole life. And I just learned to live with it. I just learned to deal with the fact that I would probably have a headache, especially if things were stressful, or if I didn't drink enough water, if I didn't eat, if I had too much sugar, if I didn't get enough sleep. All of those things were huge factors, but just minimizing that in itself wasn't enough.
What did you find that gave you relief from your migraines?
It wasn't until I started practicing yoga pretty consistently. I was practicing every single day a style of yoga called Ashtanga. And what Ashtanga is for specifically is for alignment of the body. It's meant so that we could sit comfortably in meditation. They didn't really care about exercising. They cared about being able to be able to meditate comfortably. So people would sit and feel like, oh, this is too tight and that hurts and I can't sit because of this. So they designed this exercise that stays exactly the same. It's 75 poses, it never changes. And you go from one pose to the next. And it's basically like a moving chiropractor appointment that just kind of aligns the body and puts everything back where it's supposed to be so that you can sit finally and comfortably sit in meditation. So I was practicing that literally every day. And I didn't know, I did notice a change in way later. And it wasn't until I also started incorporating yin yoga and a lot of restorative yoga into my practice as well. And different meditations, a lot of that helped. But yeah, one day I just turned around and I thought about it and I was like, I haven't had a migraine in really long time. When was the last time? And yeah, they were just kind of gone. And it basically started when I really started my yoga practice. So once I realized that, I really started honing in on how to prevent migraines from coming through this practice. But then, occasionally I would still get one if I didn't eat the right things, if I didn't sleep the right way, if I, had too much wine or something the night before. I would still get migraines occasionally. Stress, hormones, all of that changes it for you. So I, on top of that, then put together a yoga practice that can be used when you're actually in the moment of having a migraine, that can actually relieve it. And while for not every single time does it relieve it completely, the relief is significant. And if you've ever suffered from a migraine, you know that pain is just terrible. Any amount of relief is welcome. And that's what I've been working on, putting that together, whether it's through meditation or a specific slow, gentle practice, some different spinal movements, different ways of getting the body aligned. I put together a migraine yoga journal to help others kind of figure out their triggers, because that's definitely key to start with, to know where you're coming from, what you're dealing with right out off the bat. But yeah, yoga has pretty much changed my life that way.
That's amazing. How long did you spend in Bali?
Oh, it was about 2 months, a little more than 2 months. The actual uh, training, yoga teacher training, is 200 hours. It was 3 weeks, 6 days a week, from about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning until about 6 o'clock in the evening. Yeah, and so then I since it's so far away, it takes you basically 2 days to get there from here. So I figured I might as well stay, and I stayed for about a little over a month after that, and just traveled around mainland Bali. Yoga Bliss is the shala that I got my yoga teacher training from, and it is on the island of Nusa Lembongan off the coast of Bali. So I spent time, traveling around that island, and then moved on to the bigger island, and it was just life changing. The best thing I've ever done in my whole life, for sure.
Oh my gosh. Sounds amazing.
Yes.
So starting at, 8, 9 years old to have those migraines, how often did you have those migraines and how did you deal with that being in school, being so young?
So for a long time, I would say, yes, I was about first, second grade. When they came on, there was nothing I could do but lie down. I ended up in the nurse's office almost every other day. She would turn off the lights and let me just lie there. Sometimes she'd call my mother to come get me. Sometimes they would make me sick to my stomach, so my mother would have to come pick me up. It started getting so bad that I was missing so much school that I ended up becoming homeschooled. So from grade 7 to finish to high school, I was homeschooled because it had just gotten so bad that I was missing more school than I was there.
Mm-hmm.
And really the only thing I could do when they came on, the thing that I found at the time that worked the best for me was lying in a dark room and putting an ice pack on my head. And then the ice is what would just relieve the pain enough so that I could fall asleep. And falling asleep and sleeping for a few hours was basically like a reset for me. And usually if it wasn't too terrible, then I would wake up and be okay. There was always that aftermath, that feeling of hollowness or emptiness or dizziness or just like a surrealism after you've had a migraine. So I would say that I don't feel like for years, I don't feel like I was ever completely migraine free. Even if it wasn't actually the pain of a migraine present, there was always some kind of lightheadedness, nausea, dizziness, unable to function. So yeah, I can truly say that I know what it feels like for the first time ever since about 2020, 2021, that to feel healthy, to feel like I can not worry about something like that coming on. I got married back in 2008, And I had all sorts of preparations in place because I just knew that kind of excitement was going to bring on a migraine. You know, even just being able to have a glass of champagne at my own wedding was going to bring on a migraine. You know, traveling the next day, leaving for a honeymoon, that was definitely going to bring on a migraine. So it was like you had to prepare, you know, all of the drugs you have to bring with you, making sure you stay hydrated constantly, making sure you get sleep, making sure you don't let certain lights affect you. You know, it's a whole it's a whole life situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you notice an increase in the intensity or the frequency as you moved into adolescence and those hormones started kicking in? Did that play a big factor in
You know,
as well?
so I think that when I was young, they were bad, and you know, children just kind of like play things off. I did get them. Sometimes they would get to the point where they were so bad that I would have to lie down and be in a dark room and just sleep it off. But a lot of the times, even as a young child, I would just play and run through it, you know. But yes, as I started to get older into, I would say 13, 14, 15, that's when it started really becoming an issue. I wasn't able to do that anymore. I wasn't able to just keep functioning. And that's when I started missing school. Grades were terrible. No, I had no interest in anything. It was just, you know, trying to survive hour by hour, really.
Hey there, salty fans. People are starting to pay attention to what's really in our food supply. At Salty Provisions, they've been doing it all along.
Salty Provisions keeps it clean, literally. They never use fillers, anti-caking agents, artificial flavors or colors, plus all their products are gluten-free and vegetarian.
Their first and most important ingredient is Norwegian sea salt. It's rigorously lab tested and proven to be one of the purest options on the market compared to other major brands. You get the minerals you want without the impurities and toxins you don't.
Whether you're all about flavor or count on salt to support your health, shout out to all our POTS warriors. Contaminants can add up fast.
That's why they made the best choice for their first ingredient, so you can focus on what really matters, like what delicious food you're going to sprinkle it on next.
So go ahead, keep it clean with Salty Provisions. You'll find gourmet, award-winning sea salts, salt-forward seasoning blends, and electrolyte drink mixes.
Visit doyoulovesalt.com. Use SpoonFull with 2 L's for 20% off, because you deserve nice things and you won't have to compromise on your health. So you said that there was a yoga technique to relieve a migraine after it's already started. Can you walk us through what that looks like?
It's really different for everyone. I will talk to you about my own personal triggers because everybody's different. When I get a migraine, usually almost I would say 9 times out of 10, there's neck pain or shoulder pain or upper back in the back pain that's associated with it. And I will not be able to relieve the migraine until I can relieve that. So I put together a lot of yin poses that strictly target the upper body and the neck, the shoulders, and the spine. And so that's one of the first go-tos for me. I have different props, foam rollers, blocks, stuff like that I will prop myself up on and either massage certain parts of the body with the foam roller while I'm in specific yoga poses. Or if it's even past that, because sometimes that's like, you know, they could get worse than that. I have a kind of a yin practice that you can do right in bed. So when you're lying there and you really can't even think about trying to get to any kind of a yoga mat to do anything, it's literally different ways of propping yourself up with maybe your pillows and doing different neck maneuvers while listening to certain guided meditations that have these breathing techniques that I've put together to go along with it. And that's been the way that I usually am able to relieve the pain enough to fall asleep to get that reset going. But yeah, a lot of the times it's kind of in stages. I'd say when they're at their worst, there's yoga poses and meditations and different neck techniques that I do in bed. If it's not quite that bad, there's gentle, extremely gentle yoga poses that I do on the mat itself. And then when I'm feeling really good, there's preventative poses and a practice that I put together so that you can avoid them altogether. And I'd say that with that, the days that I spend in bed needing that guided meditation are so minimal. It's almost non-existent, and it's truly, for me, usually due to the fact that I've had too much wine. I know that that's my trigger. If I go out with my friends and I have brunch or champagne or something like that, a glass or two is okay. Anything more than that, and I will be in bed doing my migraine meditation the next day for sure. So I've kind of basically narrowed it down to learn my triggers. Certain salty foods, certain sugary foods, certain processed foods, and it's just a way of knowing what to avoid. I know for me, I'm a 8 to 10 hours of sleep kind of girl. So if I don't get enough sleep, then there has to be a nap or I'm going to get a headache. So there's just certain ways of maneuvering your life around stuff like that.
And that, I imagine, took quite a while to start to learn what those triggers are.
Sure. I mean, I'm 45 years old. My migraines, I will say, were at their worst when I was in my late teens, early 20s. That's probably when they were at their worst. And yeah, it took me so 19, 20 years to get and none of it, I don't think I would have found any of it without yoga. Yeah.
When you began your yoga practice, the benefits of and the impact that it had on your migraines almost was like a happy accident, is what it sounds like.
Oh, for me, it definitely was. Yeah.
Yeah, for you. What drew you initially into exploring yoga?
So I moved to California, of course, to be close to my sister. And when I was in New York, I was in love with yoga, but we didn't have yoga studios all over the place like we do in California. And the ones that we did have were extremely expensive. So I was always so intrigued by yoga, but kind of unable to get into it. And so I started practicing on DVDs mainly just to understand some of what the poses were and some of the techniques. But it wasn't until I moved to California, and I just moved here. I didn't know anybody. I was going through a divorce. I was so stressed out. And I moved in with my sister until I could figure out what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. And in that time, I joined my first yoga studio that I had ever was able to become a member of. And that immediately was just life-changing. The first class, I lied down on my mat and I was just sobbing for the sheer fact that I was practicing yoga in a studio. And so for me, I've always been extremely drawn to it. It's always been a passion. It's always been something that was almost unattainable. And to be honest, I grew up in an extremely religious family. And so yoga is like from the devil, they think that you might get possessed by demons, so it was extremely frowned upon. It wasn't until I moved out on my own that I started even looking into stuff like DVDs and all of that in my own practice. And then to move to California and to have such access to such beautiful studios just everywhere. They're everywhere. I started doing, different hopping around from one studio to another. Every month I would try a different studio, and sometimes I'd go back for another month at some place or go somewhere else. And then finally I said, I want to get my training certificate just to enhance my own practice. I don't even care if I ever become a teacher. And so I started doing research, and I found things that popped up were studios in Costa Rica, Thailand, thinking, oh, maybe I should just go away and do it that way. And I started narrowing down the different studios I liked based on location, the style of yoga that they practiced, and I found it after much research. I narrowed it down to Bali. I located this one studio. She got reviews where she specializes in Ashtanga, and all of the reviews said things like, so hard. It's like yoga boot camp. There's homework and you're going 12 hours a day. And it was so intense. And I was like, that's the one. That's the one. I want that one. So she had us read a list of 24 books before we came to practice. Wow. And most of them were on Ashtanga, some on Yin, and some on Restorative. So it was just actually finally getting there because, I was supposed to go March 25th of 2020 and we got shut down March 17th. And I was so close to going. And so then it became, every other month we were talking to one another. Do you think it will be next month? What about next month? And just kept getting pushed back until it was 2 years that we did that. So finally, 2022, I was finally able to get there, meet her in person, and finally finish my training and this journey that I had started. So it was magical for me, completely magical.
So do you teach just local in California? I know you have your Instagram page, and we're going to tag that so that people can follow you and get more information. But do you do any online teachings or anything like that, or is it strictly in studio?
Sure. I'll give you a rundown of all the things I do. So I teach privately. I'm putting together a yoga for migraines course. That's pretty much all put together, which is essentially just what I do for myself. And I am going to also be putting that together at two of the local studios that I work at. One is in Curtis Park. It's called Summer Moon. So there will be a yoga for migraines workshop on probably a weekend, probably a Saturday and a Sunday, so that you can get a small fraction of some tools that you can use to take home with you for that. So I do that. I teach privately. I teach online through Zoom. And I am currently working in about 6 different yoga studios right now. Today I started at a daycare. I was teaching yoga to 3-year-olds. And then directly from there, I moved into Rise Yoga Studio in Greenhaven, which is more of an adult community. So I teach yoga for older, like more Hatha, slow flow, very low to the ground and therapeutic. And then I moved on to Yoga 6 in Elk Grove, and I taught a restore class there today, and we did the laws of the universe. So I'm pretty versatile in all of the different styles of yoga that I practice and teach, but my obsession is Ashtanga. I'm just so in love with it. And it was actually a style of yoga that terrified me when I first started. And then Yin I found to be the most helpful, the most beneficial for stress, anxiety, balancing out your nervous system, as well as flexibility and all of the spinal alignment. And then Restorative. In our lives, we all need restorative yoga. It's the only way to balance out the nervous system in the most holistic, therapeutic, calming way. So those are the 3 top styles of yoga, I would say.
Well, you just talked about many different types of yoga or styles of yoga. And I feel like in general, most people probably think of the normal, like the traditional, downward dog, lotus, those that are the most well known. What advice do you have to someone who has not really been exposed to yoga, or just kind of has that preconceived notion that this is how yoga is, and they may discount it because they're like, my body can't do those.
Right. Sure. I would begin by explaining Ashtanga itself and how I would start in something like that. And I think it's something similar to like a vinyasa class or a hot yoga class, where I feel like hot yoga has become this trend that people almost want to try just because it's something that's so talked about. And the best way that you would approach something like that in itself, because I also teach hot yoga, is you probably don't want to go all in the second you take your first class. You think that you're going to get there and you're going to be able to achieve every single pose to its fullest degree, and you're just going to leave being this like beaming yogi, and it's just way too much expectation to put on yourself. We just don't function that way. So I always advise my students when they first come into class, take your breaks, take your water. If it gets too warm or if it feels too intense, step outside for a minute, get a breath, come back in. And then right at the beginning of class, we start with a breathing technique that you can use when you're in a certain pose. If things should feel too intense, you can return to that breath and use it as a tool to work through anything that might feel a little bit heavy in the moment. And of course, always returning to the breath. I tell my students, yoga is breathing. If you're not breathing, I don't care what pose you're in, you're not doing yoga. It's all about the breath. And that's what makes anything we do possible, is using the breath. And so, I mean, I guess that would be my biggest advice for the more intermediate or advanced levels of yoga. And for everything else, I feel like quite possibly, maybe it's just because of the background I myself came from, that people do have kind of an idea, a concept of what yoga is. And it's just so much more than that. And anyone can do it at any level. There's no, even if you're going into an advanced class as a beginner, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's your practice. I like to tell my students, your yoga mat, that's your island. That's your safe space. That's your own world. There's no one else in this room matters. You do what you want to lie in Shavasana the whole time. You want to stay in child's pose or down dog. You do you. That's yoga, So I'm just there to invite you to try different poses or guide you through a few ideas, invite you to try something new that you might have not tried before. But it's all an invitation. It's all just, a guide, and you can take it or leave it. That's, I guess, would be my best advice.
I love yoga, and I would like to get into a regular yoga practice. So, but that has nothing to do with any of the questions I might have on here for, like, you covered everything so well.
That's what everybody says. I can't tell you how many times a day I hear, I so want to try to start a yoga practice.
Yeah. I've done, I mean, I need a consistent practice for, and find a good studio but, just the, I know the intensity of that program that you did, because I went, I'm a certified mindful outdoor guide, and I did 10 days at Kripalu to do that. So I know, like, when you were talking about those long days, and how intense it is, it's like, it's a lot of work. And, you truly have to be passionate,
right.
And dedicated to do that. And then to be able to share those gifts once you've gone through that is just, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd have to say that obviously Bali itself is so beautiful and paradise, and the people that live there are lovely and amazing. And I say, do you practice yoga? And they're like, no, we don't practice yoga. Meanwhile, you step out your door and they're all sitting in the grass meditating or stretching.
Yeah.
They don't call it yoga. Yeah. That's just life.
They don't call it.
Yeah. So it was so lovely to experience that. And yeah, I feel like even if you want to start a yoga practice and you just don't know how, I just say, even if it's just 5 minutes, because I know stepping into a yoga studio when you don't know how to do yoga for the first time can be really overwhelming and intimidating. And if you just start with 5 minutes a day of like one sun salutation, and then move on to doing 2 sun salutations. And maybe that's all you do, or maybe you just use it to stretch when you need some openness in the body, you know. That's really so right there, so helpful. Just that in itself is extremely changing. And then sometimes that is just a catalyst to make you want to try a little more, because you just end up feeling so good from those 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's great. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you on Instagram, where they can follow your story?
Sure. I was very fortunate to find that I got the cat pose in almost everything. The cat pose on Facebook, the cat pose on Instagram. The cat pose is my website, so it's thecatpose.studio, which I was also lucky to get. And yeah, that's it. The cat pose. It's so simple.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming and spending time with us. And I'm so happy that you found something that's been able to give you some relief, and is so important. And we definitely will share all your information so that our listeners can follow you online and be able to find a little bit more information about all the different types of yoga that are out there. And yeah, we just can't thank you enough for
Thank you.
sharing your story.
Joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful, really. I can't even tell you. This has been lovely.
I'm glad that she was able to find something that helped her migraines.
Yeah. And I think that's what we're talking about through this whole episode, is just finding different ways of treating your pain or symptoms, and just looking beyond the scope of one area. And I'm glad that she was able to find some relief in her yoga. And yeah, I agree. I mean, she was lovely, and I probably could have asked her 10 more questions, but yeah, and her, just the things that she's doing, all the different types of yoga. I didn't realize there were so many types of yoga, and I haven't heard of a few of these. And so I'll be anxious to get on and take a look at her Instagram page and see what more I can find.
Yeah, I am definitely. There's a few of them that piqued my interest that I had never heard of before. I knew there was a lot of different modalities, but I didn't, there was some of them that definitely, I'm like, I'm digging into that a little bit more. So.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you all for joining us this week on our Spoonful of Strength podcast. Next week, we will be talking about physical therapy, and we have a couple physical therapists joining us, Jessica and Kyle, and these are from your physical therapy office, correct, Rachel?
Yes, I've worked with both of them. Jessica is more like a neurological physical therapist. She works a lot with my MS, and Kyle's more of the muscles of that. But yeah, they're going to be joining us and talking about physical therapy. And then we'll have our spoonie of the week will be Anna, and she will be talking about living with Lyme disease. So I'm looking forward to having her with us as well to share her story. Mm-hmm. Thank you all again, and we will see you next Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Spoonful of Strength. We hope that you found a little inspiration and maybe even a new perspective to carry with you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit that like button, follow us for more, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And if you're feeling generous, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. Your support helps us reach more spoonies just like you.
Until next time, remember to take care of yourself and keep finding strength in your story. Bye for now.
And see you next time on Spoonful of Strength.